So you're starting out as a new professional or maybe an intern here in North Carolina. That's fantastic. You're about to be on the front lines helping people in really meaningful ways. But with that power comes a huge responsibility, and that's knowing when you have to speak up to protect someone who's vulnerable. This explainer is all about helping you navigate two of your biggest and sometimes conflicting duties: your legal mandate to report harm and your professional promise to keep things confidential. I want you to just imagine this for a second. You're in a session, you're building real trust with a client, and then they tell you something that's really concerning, a secret that makes you think a child or a disabled adult might be in danger. Your heart starts pounding, right? Your mind is racing with questions. What do I do? This isn't just some textbook scenario. This is a reality you are very likely going to face. And knowing the answer, well, that's not just important, it's your absolute legal and ethical duty. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to break this all down. First, we'll tackle the absolute foundation, the big one, mandatory reporting. Then we'll get into that promise of privacy, what's known as privileged communication. After that, we'll see what happens when those two things collide head on. We'll also look at a few other reporting situations you might run into, and we'll wrap it all up with a simple, practical framework to guide your actions. Let's start with the most fundamental rule you absolutely have to burn into your memory. Seriously, this isn't a suggestion, it's not a best practice, it is a non-negotiable legal duty for every single person in North Carolina. You know, the power of this rule is really in how simple it is. Some states, they only put this duty on certain professions. Not North Carolina. The law here is crystal clear. It applies to any person or institution. That means you, me, your supervisor, the person next door, literally everyone has a legal duty to report if they suspect abuse or neglect. So what exactly are we talking about here? What triggers this duty? Well, the law really zeroes in on two key vulnerable groups. First, any suspected abuse, neglect, or dependency of a juvenile. And second, any disabled adult who you believe needs protective services. And for both of those, look who has to report: any person. The responsibility is universal. And the process itself, it's actually pretty straightforward. The legal bar isn't that you have to be 100% certain, it's just cause to suspect. That's it. If you have a reason to suspect something's wrong, your first step is to figure out which county Department of Social Services or DSS is the right one. Then you make the report. You can do it over the phone, in writing, just get it done. Your job isn't to be a detective, it's to get the ball rolling so the people who are trained to investigate can do their jobs. Okay, so now let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this. We all know that building trust with clients is everything, right? And a huge part of that trust is built on your promise of confidentiality. It's a promise that actually has some real legal teeth. This is what's known as privileged communication, and it's a legal rule, not just an ethical guideline. Basically, it means that what a client tells you in confidence is protected. It's shielded from being dragged into court. This shield is what allows clients to open up and be truly honest, which, as you know, is absolutely essential for any kind of effective care. Now, in North Carolina, not just anyone gets this legal shield. It's specifically given by law to certain roles where that deep confidentiality is critical. We're talking about psychologists, social workers, counselors, healthcare providers. You can see the list. If you're in one of these professions, your client's words are legally protected. But, and this is a huge but, there's a catch. And here we are. This is the moment we've been building up to. It's that critical point where your duty to keep a secret seems like it's about to have a head-on collision with your duty to report harm. This is the absolute core of the challenge you're going to face. So let's lay it out plain and simple. On one hand, you have this legal command to report suspected harm to a vulnerable person. On the other, you have a legal and ethical promise to keep what your client says private. When these two things are staring each other down, which one gives way? Which one wins? Thankfully, North Carolina law does not leave us guessing. It is incredibly direct. The statute literally says, no privilege shall be grounds for failing to report. It doesn't get much clearer than that. It doesn't matter what your profession is. The law basically says that privilege you have, it doesn't apply here. So, if you remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. This is the crucial point. In North Carolina, when you have cause to suspect abuse or neglect of a child or a disabled adult, your duty to report is absolute. It always, and I mean always, overrides your professional privilege. There is no gray area on this. The law puts the safety of the vulnerable first, period. Now, I get it. Making a report can feel scary. You might be thinking, but what if I'm wrong? The law understands that. That's why there's a really powerful good faith protection built right in. As long as you make a report in good faith, meaning you genuinely suspect something is wrong, you are legally immune. You can't be sued or charged with a crime for it. In fact, the law automatically assumes you acted in good faith. It has your back. Okay, so we've really hammered home reporting abuse and neglect to DSS. But that's not the only time your duty to report kicks in. There are other situations that require you to call a different authority, law enforcement. Let's touch on those. All right, let's play out another scenario. A client comes in for treatment, and in the course of your work, you find out they have a gunshot wound. Ding, ding, ding. This triggers a totally different, but just as mandatory, reporting rule. Yeah, there's a specific law that says physicians and hospitals have to report certain types of injuries straight to the police or sheriff. We're talking about things like gunshot wounds, if you suspect poisoning, certain knife wounds that look criminal, or any really serious injury that seems to be from a violent crime. This is totally separate from your DSS report. Okay, one more critical situation, and this one is kind of a combo deal. What if you're a physician and you're treating a child for a serious injury and your professional judgment is telling you this was not an accident? Well, in that very specific case, you actually have a dual reporting duty. It's a 2-for-1. The law is explicit here. You have to make a report to law enforcement, and you still have to make your mandatory report to DSS. You have to do both. No exceptions. Whew. Okay, we've gone through a lot of legal ground, so how do you actually use all this information when you're in the moment facing a tough call? Let's boil it all down to a super simple framework you can use as your mental checklist. All right, here it is, your mental checklist. Step 1, you ask yourself the big question. Do I have cause to suspect abuse or neglect of a child or a disabled adult? If the answer is yes, you go straight to step 2. You remind yourself, okay, my duty to report is now my #1 priority. It is absolute. Step 3, you gather the key info, name, address, what's going on. And finally, step 4, you act. You contact the county DSS immediately. That's it. I think it helps to remember the big picture here. The whole protective services system is designed to be a safety net. It's there to catch the most vulnerable people in our communities when they fall through the cracks. But here's the thing about that safety net. It's not automatic. It just sits there, waiting. Your report, your phone call, is the signal. It's what activates the entire system and puts that net into action. Look, your professional role is built on immense trust and responsibility. Understanding these rules isn't just about checking a legal box. It's about being prepared to be the one person who takes action when it truly, deeply matters most. Your report is that safety net. So the only question left is, are you ready to act?